Guys, here we are. We have arrived at the summer showdown. What we've all been waiting for. So we are going to do a little bracket. All right. So it's gonna be a little bit hard to do because you have to guess which team is going to be picked after they win. So a lot of guesswork going on here, but brackets are always super fun to make. If you guys are gonna do March Madness, this is kind of like a mini form of that. So here we go. Starting off tomorrow, we got a bunch of games. We got the knockout rounds for North America. Looking at Valiant versus Defiant, first of all. So we had some shots fired. The coach of Valiant, packing 10, he was like, yeah, we just kind of think Toronto's bad, so we're going to play them. And to be fair, I mean, Toronto's 11. The only team that they beat this stage was Vancouver. So I don't think he's necessarily wrong. Toronto has not been playing well at all throughout the season. So, big edge to Valiant here. Would it be just funny if after like Valiant come out and talk some shiz that Toronto would come back and just win for some reason? That'd be funny. I would say that they also have the best Genji player in this matchup in agilities. But the Valiant are very, very strong at running the Tracer Ashe / Tracer Widow. They have two excellent heroes for that. So for Toronto, because we saw, Valiant just lose to Paris, who did a similar thing where they ran a lot of Genji, and when they ran the Genji, they won. Is Toronto as good as Paris at running that comp? I don't think so, but that is their chance. That is where this could get interesting because if they just pour in the resources to agilities and just empower him, he is a player that can absolutely carry even against good teams. So, while this one isn't, it could get interesting. It might not be quite as straightforward as you might think. I'm still going to go with the Valiant here. I don't trust Toronto to perfectly execute it just empowering their Genji, giving him the nanos, giving him as much space as they can with their tanks and their other DPS. So I am going to go with the Valiant here. But, like I said, just potential upset here. Speaking of potential upsets, I honestly think that any of the lower seeded teams could win. Last, in the main melee, it was kind of like, all right, I mean, these are just going to be rolls in the knockout round. The only one that was like close was the Dallas-Houston matchup, and the higher seeded team still ended up winning in Dallas. But for this one, I think it's interesting because Washington Gladiators did beat them a week ago, but Justice did they did kind of surprise me and other people by beating Boston in the little play-in game. So they made their way in. Gladiators were obviously confident against them because they picked them to play against it again. Although, to be fair, I mean, it was either between Justice or Houston or Dallas, so I would definitely take Justice for that. So I still think Gladiators win this one. Their matchup against Washington was a little scary. Last time out, Washington took the draw and then a win, maps 2 and 3. And then the Gladiators kind of stepped it back up and won the last couple. So I'm pretty confident in the Gladiators to win this. I do think Washington has looked better. They probably have the best Genji of either team. When Mira was playing the Genji for Gladiators, it wasn't doing much at all for me. So again, could be interesting here, but I don't think Genji is quite strong enough yet that they'll be able to just win on the back of that. But again, this one could be closer than we think. But in the end, I will go with the higher seeded Gladiators. Another rematch. Florida just recently beat Houston, but again, it was a tight match. It was back and forth for sure. Florida's like, all right, we'll take him again. I'm honestly a little surprised. I'm kind of surprised they didn't pick Dallas. Again, I could see a potential upset here. It's what I was saying though last week before these two teams played. I was like, Houston, they keep showing these improvements. I really like what I've seen from them, but they just can't quite get over the top. And will they do that now? They could. I just don't see Florida getting knocked out in first round. I just can't see it. Yeah. Houston, a ton of pieces. I thought Blase played pretty solid on the Genji when they had him in last time. Linkser did a good job last time dueling against BQB on the hit scan when they had him in. Dante had a pretty solid game. And again, he could just go nuts. I think this match could very well be determined by which Tracer has the better performance. If Yaki pops off and plays better than Dante, Florida's going to win. And if Dante plays better than Yaki, then Houston could definitely win this. But I just think Florida's still a bit stronger. I can't quite bring myself to go with this upset. The last couple of days, I was just trying to hype myself up. Oh, Houston's going to come back. Houston's going to take this. They're going to get their revenge. But I just can't do it. No upsets until round 2 for me. Again, I would like to pick Dallas. This is an interesting matchup because Paris looked really good against Valiant, but they looked really horrible their last couple of matches before then. So which Paris are we going to see? This is the same. Obviously, no hero pools just like last week. So I feel like Paris is still going to be pretty strong. So I don't like Dallas winning here. When they were talking to Arrow, he was like, "Yeah, for our next 2 matches, which they played those 2 matches, we're gonna have Onigod in. So now that those are done and now they're in tournament time, will we see Decay? I think we will. I think we kind of have to if they want any kind of chance of winning. And with Decay in, this could be interesting because I honestly think he's a better Genji than Doha. Even though Doha isn't a terrible Genji, but Decay is nuts on Genji. Or they could have him on Tracer and have Doha on Genji. I think either way, an Onigod Decay lineup could be really good, or a Decay Doha lineup could be really good. So we'll see what Dallas throws at them. If they're able to beat Paris here, I'd say that the absolute throw against Vancouver might have been worth it then. But if they can't and they lose right away in the knockout round and don't even get to the quarters like they did last time, then question marks for the coaching staff. Bunch of question marks. So yeah, I'm going with Paris here. They have the results to back up a prediction behind them, and I just can't get behind Dallas until I see it. I need to see these 3 DPS as a rotation instead of just kicking Decay out. Alright, so of these 4 teams, San Francisco gets first pick, and this is an interesting one. I think that they definitely wouldn't go with Florida. They had a pretty close matchup against them in Grand Finals of May Melee. Last May Melee, they beat Valiant 3-0. They haven't played Gladiators in a bit. They did play Paris a couple of weeks ago and just took them to Pound Town. So I would honestly predict that they grab... Like I said, I don't think it's Mayhem. I don't think it's Valiant either. I think that they grab Gladiators or Paris. I'm going to say Paris, just because they had such a good result against them last time that they're going to be feeling confident. Since they had the preparation against Paris, they can kind of apply that, to their matchup now, even though there were hero pools and it was before the Genji buff last time they played. So Paris will be stronger for sure, but after such a dominant win over them, I think you gotta just grab them back. Paris has to be, when Paris sees that they're playing Shock, I think that's got to be a little bit of a shock to the psyche, like, oh boy, here we go. So I think that they grab Paris. Number 2, Atlanta Reign. So I could see them going a couple of ways here. I think probably Gladiators. I think you'd have to say the Gladiators are the weakest of the 3 teams remaining for sure. Atlanta did lose to Gladiators about 3 weeks ago. Again, a little bit of a different meta now. They lost to Florida in the quarterfinals last time. So maybe they go for a revenge pick. I could see this team going for that. Probably not playing the Valiant. I'm gonna say they grab Gladiators, because I just think it's hard to argue that objectively Gladiators are just a weaker team than Valiant and Mayhem, and I think the Reign are just going to try to get their best chance for victory. Of the 2 that are left, Philly, I'd say they'll grab Valiant. They lost to Florida previously, and again, even though LA beat Florida straight up a couple weeks ago, I still like Florida's potential a little bit more than the Valiants. So whoever is the 5 seed is, or not the 5 seed per se, but whoever gets skipped over by Shock, Fusion, and Atlanta, man. Imagine, you could be playing San Francisco, or you could be playing the Titans, who admittedly have looked better. You know, they're up to 4 wins on the season, got a couple of them, but they beat weaker teams. Florida is on 100% beating them if they play, and sending themselves into the semis. Again, for Vancouver, there's good moments. I think KSAA has been better for sure. Shredlock has been solid, I feel like, pretty much since coming in. Rolf has had some interesting alts. Karkar has had some absolute baffling rallies at like end of fights, but they've also had good moments. So I think that the Vancouver are definitely looking stronger. However, they're not ready to beat a team like Florida. They're just not. I don't see them matching up very well against them at all. Again, Dalton, I feel like Dalton has played well, especially in spurts. I feel like in general though, there's been too many missed pulse bombs. Pulse bombs are just so important in this meta that you have to at least remove an immortality field with a pulse bomb. You have to. It's so necessary to win fights. If not, and then if you obviously force the immortality field out earlier, then maybe you can go for a couple of kills. You know, there's a lot of targets that don't have too much evasion in this meta. So, got to get a ton of value from your Tracer. And although I think that Dalton has been good, like I said, there's just been moments where missed pulse bombs, sometimes just going in too deep and dying. Yeah, and Yaki's been amazing on Tracer. So, definitely going with Florida there pretty easily. Shock versus Eternal. Again, that's going to be Shock. I think Eternal gives them a much better fight this time. But, I mean, we saw what they did to Paris. We saw what they did to Fusion last week. I mean, if that wasn't one of the most impressive wins that we've ever seen in a regular season match, you know, that's just been hyped and a one-loss Philly team coming in and just getting absolutely steamrolled. So, definitely going with Shock here. Paris probably takes a map off of them this time, but in the end, I don't see anybody stopping the Shock. It's brutal. Then we got Fusion versus Valiant. So if this is a matchup, I'm just gonna be fascinated to see what happens. You know, Fusion, what's their mental makeup? How are they gonna come out after getting just taken to the shed? How are they gonna respond? Because it was bad. They had what, like they barely had, it was like 5 or something eliminations the entire first map. It was something that you never ever want to see. And just speaking strictly about like the team, what do you do with your hit scan? Or, well, I guess just what do you do with your DPS? Because they kept bringing it up in the cast. And it was pretty clear to see that Hisu was just out of his league there. And to be fair, you know, Ans had just an incredible, like, non-sustainable performance. However, Hisu just didn't look good at all. It didn't look like he could stand up to any of the top tier hit scans. And KSP is an extremely good hit scan. So, if he can't step up his performance in a big way, then they're in big trouble. I mean, you think about the rest of their DPS. They have Chipsa. I mean, they're not playing him at this point. They played him one map against Vancouver when they were at their worst. So I don't see them playing him. Ivy seems to be a May one trick. You know, we have seen him on some like projectile-y before. We've seen him on some hit scan. He did a little bit of everything when he was on Toronto. So it's like, where does he really sit? Can you bring him in maybe? And then you have EQO, who, if you commit to a Genji, you could throw him on Genji and then have Carpe on the Tracer. But I don't think you have anybody good enough on Tracer that you can put in and then have Carpe do hit scan. It's like they were saying, Carpe is the best Widow on the team and the best Tracer on the team. So you have a bit of a problem there if you're Fusion. This will be an absolute test from the coaching staff. Because they failed miserably against the Shock. They were like, let's just run Tracer Ashe. That's good, right? And then just got fisted. So, are they going to have an actual like creative comp that plays to their team's strengths? Or are they just going to go flat, stale, bread meta? We'll see. I don't know. Like I said, we're going to find out what kind of team Philly is with this first matchup. I do think that they'll probably win. Like I said, the Valiant just have a couple of weaknesses that can be exploited. And I'm not going to totally condemn Fusion for losing to Shock because they're the Shock. They have their bench has more talent than most of the teams in the league. So I'll say Fusion in a very close one. But again, Philly fans, if I'm a Philly fan, I'm sweating before this matchup. Because if you lose here, you're sitting at 15-2. That's amazing. But you don't have any postseason results. And you don't have any really real results against the top teams. So it's a proven match for both of these teams, for Valiant too. And then we got Reign versus Gladiators. I think Reign will get their revenge here. I'm not quite in love with Gladiators yet. There's just something that's always up with them. It doesn't ever really just click. They're close, I feel, but it just never coalesces completely into them just steamrolling people and playing super well. They started off really good against Justice. They slammed them on map 1. Then they just fell apart for 2 maps, got it back together, and won the series. But when you're having lapses like that for a couple of maps, and they were interviewing Big Goose afterward, and he was like, yeah, we just haven't really, taken our scrim performance into our games, really. So I can't be that confident with them. I don't think Atlanta is that amazing. I still think that they're just a middle-tier team, but they're at least more consistent than the Gladiators are, so I'll take them in a very close matchup to move on. So, I hate to be boring, but we get the rematch here. We get the absolute rematch. And we're, of course, taking San Francisco to win it all. San Francisco, Florida should be interesting. However, Florida's power level, I feel like, has gone down a little bit since last stage finals, and the Shock beat them then. So I only see this one being a little bit more lopsided than the last one. And again, Florida took 2 maps, so Florida gave them a good run. But I think Florida takes 1 here, maybe 0. The Shock I can't pick against them until I see somebody actually push them, because they've started to turn it on. They really have. And then between Philly and Atlanta, we've seen this game before many times. Philly's just better, and they just win that straight up. Sorry, nothing super deep, no incredible analysis with a video breakdown detailing exactly how Philly will exploit Atlanta's feeder and dogman. No, sorry, nothing about that. Philly's just better. Atlanta, they still haven't beaten one of the best teams. So until then, Philly. And then San Francisco, Philly. I think Philly puts up a better fight, but again, unless they come up with some super niche thing, some kind of strategy, maybe a Tracer Genji, maybe an Echo Tracer or something. I don't know, but they got to figure out something that's unique to them, that plays to their strengths. Otherwise, I think they're in big trouble. So, unfortunately, I think the Shock repeat. All right, looking at the Asia region real quick. Obviously, Shanghai has their bye because there's only 7 teams. London and Seoul. I take Seoul. I don't think London is quite ready yet to beat playoff Seoul. I'm going to trust the Dynasty because this is a tournament. If it was regular season, I'd probably go with London. But when the card's on the table, I like Seoul. Charge and Hunters, I think Charge win that pretty easily. The Hunters is just loss after loss after loss. It's looking rough. I feel bad. I feel like this team is going to get broken up after this season, and that makes me sad because they're a very fun team. But at some point, you just need some kind of results, and they don't have any. And the Charge have looked really, really strong. I think that they're really being slept on. People are like, "Oh, is Shanghai better than Shock?" It's that's a valid question, and a question I want answered. But I think we need to start asking the question, well, can Charge give them a fight? Because they've been looking really good. Excelsior versus Hangzhou. I think that Excelsior get they get revenge here from last time. Hangzhou beat them barely. I feel like the spark have kind of dropped off a little bit. They had a rough loss to London. I feel like they had a boost, of getting the new people. But after that, I just think New York is a better team. Both teams have some stars for sure, but New York is just loaded throughout the entire lineup. The Spark have been rotating people in and out. More so than I like when teams have a rotation of DPS, but when you're rotating supports, I feel like it just messes with your synergy just a little bit. So I'm gonna go with New York there, setting up a rematch of the Charge and Excel. So if these are the two matchups, these would be great. I would love to see these two. Shanghai, I have to just give all the credit I can to Lip. Man, I mean, he's essentially rendered Diem, who was the 1v1 Widow champion last season, one of the best hit scans in the league. He's made him just kind of irrelevant because he's been so good. Like, Lip's Ashe has just been out of this world. It's insane. And then you're like, oh yeah, you got Fleta. We always talked about the Fleta deadlift in Dynasty. Can Fleta get another DPS that can really carry games, that can just form that mega duo? Can he get that? I think he has that now in Lip for sure. And then you have Ding if you ever need projectile things. Like if we do shift to Genji, he's a good Genji to go to. And then again, if we go into more of a Widow focused thing, if Ashe kind of falls off a bit, then you still have DM to fall back on. So Shanghai absolutely stacked. I think Seoul would give him a good fight, but man, I can't pick against Shanghai right now. Not when Lip's playing that well. Lip and Fleta, and you talk about how solid their tank line's been and the supports, like, come on. Charge, Excel. I'm rooting for Excel. They're kind of my team that I want to win it all because I know that my teams can't win it all. There's no way they are. So of like the upper tier teams, I'm kind of rooting for Excel. It'd be cool if the Charge won too. But like anyone who can just dethrone Shock for me would be good because I just hate when one team just keeps winning and winning and winning. But I'm going to go with the Charge to edge out Excel here. Like I said, they've just been playing so well. They're up to 13-6. They haven't really been able to beat Shanghai, but they've taken everybody else down. They have clearly solidified themselves as the number 2 team in this region. So I don't think New York can beat them quite yet. I still think New York has room to grow. They've been doing a lot of rotating with the DPS, maybe a little more than I'd like, but because they just did pick up Hacksaw, it makes sense that they're trying to get a feel for the absolute best lineups they can have. So 2 absolutely stacked teams, but I got the Charge edging it out. And then I'm going to go for an upset. I've been praising the Charge this whole time. I think Eileen could pull out a really nasty Genji. And we know about Happy's Widow and just hit scan proficiency. So I feel like he just comes out and he has a tremendous game against Shanghai. And he gives Lip all he can handle because, when those two guys are playing well, they're both absolutely top tier. So I'm going to go with a Charge upset here. I didn't want to pick the same Melee champion in both regions. So, and if the Charge do win this, that would be like the next step in this organization. It'd be a huge stepping stone. Getting a win in a tournament like this, I mean, come on, it sets you up way better for the rest of the season. Big prize pool. You want to talk about a confidence surge for your players, for your coaching staff. You probably get more fans in too if they see you win a finals. So it would be an absolutely great win for the organization. So yeah, gonna go with the Charge here. Didn't pick many upsets this whole tournament. After the Melee, I'm very hesitant to pick them, especially since we're having same meta as last week. But in the end, like I said, I think the Charge get a organization-defining win. So there are my predictions, my whole breakdown and bracket for the Summer Showdown. I hope you guys enjoyed. Thank you guys very much for watching. As always, leave a comment down below. If you have anything you want to say, any big upsets you got, any of you make a bracket where you have your team, like if you're a Houston fan or a Defiant fan or a Paris fan, if you have your team just going all the way and winning it all, let me know. Or if you have any big disagreements with any of my picks. But otherwise, I hope you guys have an absolutely awesome weekend. Get to watch some Overwatch, get to go outside, it's summer. Stay safe, and I'll see you in the next one.